Hello. It's another Write Once, Read Many. This time covering 30.6 from Arc 30 Speck. And given that we've got yet again a new record for the shortest speed draw, I'm gonna send it through again. I really like this one. The fact that it uses the original Chapter 1 art that's also the channel art. You know, seeing that kind of made me feel some type of way. We've been doing this for a long time. I really like this one and how it turned out. Connecting back to the beginning. Also, all the little faces of the people she's controlling and how, like, nondescript everything is. Really good stuff. I really enjoy this Speck song, so that's why I'm sort of reveling in the last few seconds of it. Hello, Vic. I was just complimenting your art. I was talking about how much I like that it's connected back to the original chapter art, and I like the nondescript faces and Taylor's sort of shattered mirror appearance and the connections between her and the others, and the sort of spider webby interconnected white lines, white scribbles. Big fan. I did not come up with an audience participation question. I couldn't think of anything. There's just, like, every question I thought to ask felt too small for, like, kind of how big this chapter is. So I ended up going with nothing. You know, if any people in the future have thoughts on this chapter, if they want to say anything, they can have that be the audience participation. I think there's already just enough to say talking about this incredibly weird battle. Not weird in a bad way, weird in a very good way. And like the perspective of the chapter and Taylor losing her mind and all these things, and you know, various things like Imp supporting her in the background the whole time. There's so much to talk about. Cool attacks and combos. But for themes, I put the most basic ass themes. This is, you know, brings us back to the heart of the matter. Bullying. They bully Scion to death. The space alien who is unkillable by other means is bullied to death. Escalation. I think that, you know, we continue upping the ante. We have a scene where Scion is fighting 4 of the remaining 5 Endbringers, and he completely kills off Leviathan. You know, there's an attack that's, like, bigger than any attack from Scion aside from the one that destroyed Britain, I think. Well, actually, they say, like, that he had one thing that destroyed, like, 2 continents on 2 different Earths. That was in the last chapter, but in this one, when he does the, like, light explosion, he really... The 10-mile radius of any portal that gets affected by another portal's blast of it. So it kind of radiates out like the halo. When a halo blows up, it causes all the other halos to blow up, kind of thing. Anyway, so that was there was that. And then the last theme, of course, working together. People even keep working together after they have had the horrifying experience of being controlled by Taylor. Um, which, no one wants to be controlled by Taylor. She's gross. And a bug. But, yeah, Taylor's mind is skipping a lot in this chapter. Oh, I guess I'm getting into my description of the chapter, my overall thing. Taylor's mind is skipping a lot in this chapter, and she's falling apart, like, actively the whole time. She's going to go from being able to name people to just describing people's power or hair colors to not being able to tell who the clairvoyant is while holding on to them to keep the power connection going. So it happens in stages, but she has like lines about how like something broke in my brain and it was leaking out to the other parts of my brain. There's an initial concern that Taylor has that other people will like kill Taylor instead of focusing on Scion, and also that if the Endbringers hold Scion off for too long, people will start to scatter or turn on each other. So Taylor's optimal time window seems to be between like 1 and 2 minutes. She wants people to stay in the groups she put them in, even if she's not controlling them. Because, she did it for effectiveness. It wasn't arbitrary. But yeah, so she's sort of worried. She's the kill on sight target. And then she's put a big shroud of bugs around her, so she's hard to see. And then, for her own part, she is always underestimating herself. She's like, wow, there's people who can like bring cities to their knees and they're afraid to approach me. So I think that she's always like, little old me. But yeah, she's like got her whole strategy to make a bunch of like fake Edens, and she thinks to herself how she's basically like got the Tinkers going and all these sort of bits of her plan, but she can't communicate it to anybody. So it's like it's a potential problem. And then she realizes at one point that she doesn't have her mask on, and we remember as the audience that in 30.4 the doormaker and clairvoyant pulled her mask off so she could puke, and then she didn't put back on after that. So she doesn't even remember doing that, which would have only been like a few minutes ago, right? Like probably 20 minutes ago tops. But there's a lot that's been going on, and she's going crazy. But then yeah, she's like trying to monitor the crowd a little. She's like can hear the emotions in people's voices, even though she can't tell what anybody is saying. And then she's thinking about how like the people she'd been controlling hadn't been able to see a lot of the things she'd been doing because it had been like so complex, and she'd been moving people away for safety purposes when she did like the drop all the bombs maneuver and stuff. But what they've seen is the recent change in Scion's demeanor and how he's clearly like getting more and more unhinged and emotionally wounded by what they're doing. So she thinks that there is a certain amount of like morale boost that would have given. And then also she thinks about like the whole idea that people, when they're already grouped, want to stay in those groups. At least there's some drive to, so that will help enforce things. And then there's like flashback stuff. She thinks about when she used those bullet ants on those Fenrir's chosen foot soldier guys just before her identity was outed at the school in Arc 20. And then she says, maggots in eyeballs, necrotizing flesh, stripping flesh from bone. And so we can remember the maggots in eyeballs was like, that was Valifor in Arc 21. We can remember the necrotizing flesh was when she was doing the retaliation attack on the ABB members who had been doing the hand or knee thing, which she actually thinks back because she also said it as a direct counter. And then the stripping flesh from bone, there are various times when she attempted to do that. She ate several Young Bond members, and then she also ate various clones in the Echidna fight, and she also tried to do, well, she thought about, and I think tried to do a similar thing to Jack. But, you know, she just couldn't. He was too slippery for her. But yeah, she's like, the images were so clear in my mind's eye that I could almost see them around me. And then this is when she has a flashback to Triumph, when she almost killed him by accident, but also because she wouldn't pull back. And then she hears a voice she can't identify that we know is Aisha. Imp is here and is issuing kind words. And she does get reassured, but only reassured enough to remember killing Coil at the end of Arc 16. She's like, oh, that's pretty reassuring. That time I killed Coil. And then she remembers when she killed Alexandria. And then, you know, Aisha's voice talks to her again, and she's like, oh, man, this is really keeps pulling me out of this, you know, spirals that I keep going down of, remember all those times I killed people? So, that's good. And then she realizes that she doesn't have her mantle of portals anymore, and because she had lost so many of her other anchors, this is like a big blow. But then she reconnects herself to when she'd been sort of the warlord controlling her territory in Brockton Bay. And she's worried that nothing she's remembering is real. Thinking back to Glass-Steguenier's warnings. And then she sort of sees Rachel and Lisa, and then she's sort of looking around the battlefield, realizing that people are having breakdowns, people who weren't here on the fight intentionally and who were drawn into the battle by her. And then she thinks about how even those people have support. It reminds me actually of the movie Super, when Rainn Wilson's character, crying, says, even starving children in Africa have parents who love them. There's nobody in my life. But her internal monologue thing goes, alone, a freak, crazy, broken, unhinged. And then she's like thinking over and over again how she's got to act, but she's sort of stuck waiting. There's like a detente that's going on, and then she's like checking on like Spetta, who's like trying not to accidentally kill people by hiding, and like some of the birdcage capes that might make trouble. And then she sees the Furies there, which are the same as the Blasphemies. And then which apparently they're still fighting on the human side, which is kind of cool. It's unclear what their motivations are because we never dig into that. and that's okay. Um, doot, doot, doot. And then, Glastigwinier is out there using Cape to monitor Taylor, but she's not attacking yet. So Taylor tries to refocus by biting herself to give herself some pain, and she gets herself back into at least using the clairvoyant to watch the fight between Scion and the Endbringers. Scion is killing Leviathan. He's kind of doing what he did where he just was, with Behemoth, where he hounded him and just wouldn't let him rest until he was destroyed. And he's kind of doing that same thing to Leviathan. And then, the other Endbringers try to make a difference. The Seamerg blasts them with a big wind gun that actually knocks them. And then, which one is it? It's Tohu. It's Tiny Tohu and Big Bohu. That's how I can remember it. But Tohu is using all sorts of the best powers, using the faces of Glastigwinier, Eidolon, and Mirden, and just completely blows up the spot that Leviathan and Scion are in, knocking them apart and creating a crater the size of the lake that Leviathan made during Arc 8. And then, at this point, Scion, he makes one final blast that fully kills Leviathan once and for all, and Leviathan sort of falls apart like overbaked clay, it says. And then Taylor's thinking to herself uh-oh, we really pushed we're really pushing Scion to the edge. We're really on a high wire here. This could tip either way really easily. At first, she thinks for a moment that Khonsu's dead, but realizes that he has a time field and is completely elsewhere, healing off the battlefield. Then this is when Taylor thinks that the Endbringers aren't strong enough to win this for them. And then it sort of gives her the idea. She goes, no, it was the least of us, the smallest of us, which could have the biggest impact. Capeside overlooked entirely. And then this is when she's kind of has the idea to finally move. Well, not the idea, but the impetus to move. There's divisions in her, in the huge crowd she has there, the uncontrolled people. And then Chevalier starts giving a heroic speech to the crowd, probably. And then Taylor basically takes a chute down from the top of a building and sort of slides down off the building. There's the voice of Aisha being worried, probably because she has to jump down to a chute with Taylor. But Glastigwinier notices them moving, and let's see here. Glastigwinier doesn't do anything yet. She's half distracted by Chevalier. Taylor has a moment where she sort of focuses on how she does know how strong the spider silk she's using is. So she's still, and then she's thinking how it's nice to be on firm ground with one kind of information. Then kind of thinks about how, oh wait, if one of my anchors is just, I'm obsessed with bugs, maybe that wouldn't be good. And says, I saw myself haggard, thin, with minions in a similar state, eating bugs, wearing bugs and their materials, barely human, my mind more like an insect's. And then she goes, maybe I'll think about my friends instead. Dog Girl and the girl with the phone. You know, my famous friends. Um, and then they also happen to be moving toward her and calling to get her attention. Um, uh, the Perion's trying to like patch up Foyle's like fucked up destroyed hand that because she was holding an arbalist that exploded. Um, but Rachel gets them to move with her anyway, even though they're trying to do that. Um, this is a pretty tense moment in a fight that might not have much time left on it. um, but yeah, Taylor's done like sliding down this slide. Um, and she's like realizing that she doesn't know who Perion and Foyle are anymore. Like, well, she doesn't really know who any of them are anymore, and says, "How are they supposed to be anchors when I couldn't remember who they are or why they meant something to me?" Um, uh, but yeah, I couldn't quite remember how she even knew I was coming. I hadn't controlled her recently, and her power wasn't fresh in my mind. So yeah, there's she's slipping a lot at this point. Um, she's still got Doormaker, but his power is, largely not working, and she sort of she's sort of like trying to keep her grip and stuff, and it says, "I smile, a tent surrounded by bugs, like this was a shitty camping trip. I smiled a little at the thought, a broken giggle slipping through my lips." And that's when she goes, "No, stay centered." The slur in my own thoughts made a chill run down across my back. I pressed my hand to my head as if I could physically shift things back into place or keep them from coming apart. And so Aisha talks to her again. She's still not sure what the voice is, and it's like freaking her out. And then riding on a stuffed lizard Endbringer, Perion and Foyle, along with Tattletale and Rachel on top of, I believe, Bastard, but it could be any dog, sort of arrive, and then they try to communicate. There's some starts with Lisa doing a lot of like arm movements and trying to get things, and then Taylor doesn't even remember the word Endbringers anymore. She goes, "The giant monsters are losing to Scion. He's coming soon." Oh no, I don't want Scion to come. But yeah, like they're not really getting through to Taylor. Lisa's like freaked out that Taylor seems to be approaching again. And then Aisha appears outside her bubble, and Taylor's like, "Whoa!" And she realizes that Aisha had been the voice she'd been hearing, and also is some sort of friend. I don't know what kind of friend, but some sort of friend. A gray mask, horned, with with mischievous eyes. Yeah. And then this is when Taylor starts crying. Tears came unbidden to my eyes. Lisa's still trying to communicate with her, but it's not working. And Taylor realizes that she's bleeding on her face, that she accidentally gouged at her face with her fingers. Or maybe something else gouged her. But either way, she's like, oh, I didn't even realize I was injured, so that's not great. But she feels really isolated and sad, and then she thinks about how, she has to just go, no turning back now. And then Rachel says something that's probably the word Taylor, and then Taylor goes, "What?" And then it gets her attention, and she looks her in the face to face, and then she grabs some of the chain off the dog and throws it to Taylor, and then Taylor sort of moves toward the chain. It freaks out the undersiders at first, but then they Doormaker takes the chain, or she has Doormaker take the chain, and then she moves away and moves him out of her range. And the whole idea behind this is she thinks they can give him the ability to speak with Teacher, and then they can get information from him. So that's how they can sort of convey everything she's been doing and connect the dots between her plan and everybody else. She's hoping also that they can fix his power, but that's kind of a secondary concern. She's trying to sort of pantomime to them and get information to them, but it's not super working. Neither side understands each other that well. But the closest connection is that some ideas are being conveyed back and forth between Taylor and Rachel. Also, there's a point in her mind when she thinks in stuttering language, "Please understand." I think that really... I know that this is supposed to be a sad moment, but it struck me as really funny because I remember before Iwata died when he used to say "please understand" all the time, and I loved Iwata and his public relations. So rip to a real one. Goodbye forever, Iwata. Please understand. And then we got this point when Lisa, well, I'll just read it. She started to speak. She there being Rachel. She started to speak, but the blonde cut her off. The blonde sounded annoyed, hurt, a little upset, but not in a bad way. When she looked at me, her eyes were kind. She brought the portal man to her and hooked one of her arms through his. She understood, I was almost positive. She cared, and I was positive. That annoyance, that hurt, was only because she wanted to be the one who understood me and communicated with me, even in this rudimentary way. And then, so this is when she sort of really hits home again that she wants Doormaker to tell Tattletale and such what happened. And then it seems as though the Seamerg is killed. That'd be great, but that's not what happens. The Seamerg has made... much like when she made a snow version of herself that Scion went after, she has made a some sort of dirt and debris version of herself, I guess, but a decoy nonetheless. And then the other Endbringers aren't able to keep fighting back. They're not destroyed like Leviathan was, but they're not able to maintain the fight any longer. So Glastigwenye notices Taylor moving around And Taylor sort of, steals her resolve again. She's like, I know this is dangerous, but obviously so is Scion. And then she almost moves forward to control Tattletale, but she stops herself and is like, she's gotta not be controlled by me. It's important that she's still an anchor. And so she'd save me in a way. I couldn't remember how, but I remembered that much. I think the fact that that's Taylor's core takeaway from Lisa is this is heartbreaking and sweet, and I love them. I couldn't touch her. I didn't even dare. She gestured with the phone. She's starting to forget what words are. Yeah, Scion starts moving toward them. He's done fighting the Endbringers. There's a very small window of time where, because Taylor kind of covered their tracks while they were escaping, he'll need to find them. But that's like 10 seconds. And then as soon as he's gone from where the Endbringers were, that's when the Seamer reveals herself and starts sort of moving between portals to reach where where all them are. Vic says, I was away for a min, but Imp is my favorite this chapter. Yeah. She gets a lot of really good moments to follow Taylor around and help her out. But in case you didn't hear it, the person I was like saying it was so sweet about was Lisa, and the fact that Taylor remembers her this specific way. Anyway, so once Scion shows up, Glastigüeñe casts a dubious glance toward Taylor and then moves to fight Scion. And this is when Taylor sends her phone over to Lisa, and Lisa does something with her phone. They seem to have communicated, and Lisa seems to know what she wants. It sets it up for later when Taylor's able to project Canary's song through all the phones. So Lisa has set her up to have some override that connects her to all the Protectorate and PRT phones. I could only hope that she understood what I was, when I started calling her. She'd been reluctant to help before, hadn't she? And now, when everything was on the line, I trusted her. See, this is me weeping again. I'm weeping at the connection between Taylor and Lisa. Openly. I know I don't sound very emotional and probably sarcastic at this moment, but I do... I when I'm not on a stream talking to a general audience, I'm sure I tear up more. When I was listening to these parts, certainly, it's very sad, a lot of these things, like when she thinks about her connections to people, because it also feels like, things that she's lost, all of them, so. When she thinks it's time the first time, then it's kind of normal, but then it gets like a really stretched out, italicized version. My own voice was a buzz in my head, a medley of discordant sounds, only barely resembling words. And so she's doing one final, cape gathering mission to grab everyone she needs for her plan. Not like everyone like last time. Probably like 30 people. Actually with the changers who are temporarily under her control, I'm sure that number spikes, but She's largely using a small variety of really crucial powers. She's still got the clairvoyant, so she's viewing the battlefield from all angles. She can figure out where she needs to go. And she captures Parian and Foil early on here. Glastig-Wenye, Chevalier, and all the others are fighting Scions, so she's able to move around without getting stopped by people like them. She's sort of thinking of the area in terms of who's where. Like, the brutes are hanging back because normally, like, their whole deal is that they can tank hits, but they kind of can't tank hits from Scion. So Narwhal's around, and then Taylor rolls through and grabs Narwhal, and then she does this move where she actually, to get Canary, does like a feint where she climbs part way up a building, stows herself and the clairvoyant inside like a hole in the wall, and then she has Parian call out like she's in trouble, and she has Foil pretend like she's dying or something. She's all slumped over. And then when Canary comes to help them, then she is grabbed. And then so she gets Canary to come right next to her, and she makes her sing through the phone, and the thing that she thinks is, I'm not going to do the stuttering, I'm just going to go for it. It's, think about courage, about moving forward. And I think that's the part that hits me the hardest, especially because of there's an echo of this at the end of Ward, something sort of similar to this, and it really, like, this is even further elevated by that, in my opinion. Yeah, so then she starts up the call to all the other phones in the network that Tattletale connected to her. It sends out this song. Well, actually, I guess she calls Tattletale first, and then to try and get Tattletale to understand what she wants, she does like a pantomime. I use my bugs to illustrate. A mass at the center. Pulses traveling to other nodes. To every other node. And then, like, after about a minute, which in this fight with Scion I'm sure feels like a while, then she's got she's got the song going through all the phones and stuff. And they're still fighting in the background. Vic says, honestly, TT has always been bad with gesturing. That's true. She wasn't good at getting things across to Taylor with gestures, even when Taylor could hear what she was saying and understood human body language. So she hears the song of Canary going off through the Parian and Foil's phones, and also through a third phone that she can't identify, even with the clairvoyant, but is clearly Aisha. And then, for the most part, all these Protectorate and Wards members have the song playing on them. Miss Militia takes out a shotgun, and shoots her phone, and then Chevalier waits for a moment in the fight when he can chuck his phone and slash it with his sword or whatever he does. And then someone who's described as one of his underlings, a cape who is named after a siege weapon, took his boss's lead. I'll tell you what, I tried to figure out who this cape was. No dice. I couldn't figure it out. I even stooped so low as to read comments below this very chapter. I looked in the Parahumans wiki. I looked at the Parahuman list to just find any cape that I thought might kind of fit the bill name-wise. And couldn't figure it out. No idea. But yeah, in general, people don't turn off the phones, and then the Courage Canary song helps them sort of stay in the fight and keep fighting. I even think it's probably bad that they destroyed their phones. Like, not that those two who are specifically named need the courage thing to hit them specifically, and I'm sure they thought it was like another trap, but I'm sure it doesn't hurt to have a courage buff. And then Taylor's actually slightly more mobile now that she has Canary, because she has Canary like holding the clairvoyant, and so she can use her flight pack, and Canary and the clairvoyant can both like be sustained by the power armor that Canary has on. Yeah, so they fly over. This is actually when she gets Narwhal. I was getting ahead of myself, but she grabs Narwhal, who she knew she was gonna need, and then she goes to try to get Labyrinth and Scrub. She doesn't know who these people are, but she calls them the next group. You know, they're it's hard for her to keep track of things, you know, but Dinah's with them. Dinah is yelling things out to them. I don't think Dinah's with their group. I think Dinah has enough money that she hired the Fault Line's crew, and then knowing what Dinah can do, Fault Line's crew is willing to give her a lot of leeway and understanding. But yeah, so she's using force fields to like grab people, and then like you know, use two force fields to sandwich people, and then they like fly forward, and they've left the stuffed Leviathan behind, and then you know, Fault Line is asking Dinah a bunch of questions to get information, and they use Shamrock to shoot a bullet that ricochets to like minimum damage Narwhal while still like knocking down her force fields, and so they all sort of get thrown to the ground. So and then it says, the young precog said something and stepped forward as they parted to give her room. She spoke one word, my name. I was pretty sure. What was my name? Did it start with a T sound, an S, a W, an M? All right, so T, Taylor, S, Skitter, W, Weaver, and then M, I don't know. But the W, I thought as a joke that it could be for Woim. Her final name, Woim. But then M, I'm really not sure. Like, maybe that's just her totally losing track of things and like not connecting to anything correct. But I wasn't sure if that was alluding to anything. And then the word that she responds with is and it says, I slowly pulled myself to my feet, my movements jerky, shaky, worse than it had been yet. And then she thinks to herself in like incredibly slurred speech, "You set me on this road. You owe me this. Don't get in my way now." And then in the background, Scion topples a building, and a bunch of people get defended by Shaker style like force field capes, but a bunch of people get squished. And then they're still in this moment where they're kind of facing off between Taylor and the Fault Lines crew and Dinah. And she has her bugs carry a scrap of paper over. It says an IOU if there ever was one. And then this, I think, is an error. It says she stared down at the 2.5 words, then crumpled it. Her head hung. And I have this written down somewhere, but not right here. It's, yes. The 2 notes she got were cut ties and I'm sorry. And I don't think there's any way to make those into 2.5 words, whether you use either one or both notes. Just one of those things. But then reading this note sort of hits Dinah hard. She's like, "Oh, you got my ass." And so she actually walks into Taylor's field of control, and then Taylor pushes her out instead. Taylor tries to like get some point across. She's pointing. She basically wants to get Labyrinth and Scrub, but they're not really understanding. And then Glastigüeñe starts moving toward them instead of fighting Scion. And because Scion gets knocked away for a second by Chevalier. And then she uses Narwhal's power to just scoop Labyrinth and Scrub. And then the remaining people in Fault Line's crew ready for a fight, and Dinah yells out for them to stop, and then they don't, and then Taylor's able to like make away with the 2 capes she grabbed, and then it's her portal opening combo, of course, and then Taylor kind of runs using these portals she's creating to laterally move. She can't close the portals once they're open, but she can switch to what world they are with Labyrinth. And then she just keeps making more and more and protecting them behind her with like Narwhal force fields. So she is able to like move across physical distances in the normal like whatever 3-dimensional Earth she's in, then sort of laterally move through between Earths in the same locations. So it's less direct utility than Doormaker, obviously, but you use what you got. She's still like constantly putting out Canary's song through to the crowd of capes fighting, and it's keeping them together and stuff. And then we have Scion hadn't done much planning for this eventuality, for a world where everyone was against him. In every world I'd glimpsed, we were fractured, whole nations worth of good capes hanging back or fighting with the others. He'd hidden the strategies from us, but I could connect the dots. It was about keeping him off guard, putting him on unfamiliar footing. I could only hope that everyone was enough people right now. And then she finds Golem, and she thinks a teammate, a friend. He'd worked with me on something important. She collects him, and then she gets the power boosting cape from the Yangban 2, and she's using the power boost to enhance herself, to enhance Canary and to enhance Labyrinth. So she's keeping them all like as close together as possible so that they all get as much boost as they can. So she's got more control. And then, assumedly Labyrinth, who we already know has like insanely good, powerful skills, is juiced even further. And then she gets Genesis and Ballistic, and then she tries to get Sephara, but Sephara and some other, assumedly Tonda Cape, are able to work together to, keep her away from them, and he starts sort of pinning Taylor to a wall at distance. And then she's trying to use Perion's telekinetic power to like pull him by his clothes, but he sort of roots his cape to the ground and stuff. And then there's just he gets totally thrown off because Aisha ambushes him, still not able to see her probably, and she throws him into Taylor's range, and then that's good enough. Vic says it's really interesting to see Taylor being able to defeat Scion when she's not at her max power at all. It's when she's backed in a corner that she pops off. Well, yeah, that's true. She was at probably a higher power level in the previous chapter, and this is her using a much smaller selective set of tools. Admittedly, she still gets some of the best capes, having foil, and she brings back Sephara, who was key to the last formation as well. After she collects Sephara, she thinks, I had all the individuals I needed, though I had a hunch about another I'd left behind. And then, what am I seeing here? Yeah, so, this is when she grabs the Changers, who apparently she had sort of placed all in one spot because she didn't think they'd be useful. And then she's controlling them, and she's picking what they're changing into. She's changing them into facades of Eden or of Scion, and then she won't be able to control them when they're out of her range. So she pins them to a bunch of force fields using a combination of Sephara and Narwhal, and then floats them up into the air and is kind of hoping that they will continue to change into the forms that she had already been starting on them, etc. She scatters them into the sky, and then starts using Labyrinth to really make large-scale reshapings of the world into Eden Garden pieces. And then then Teacher is giving Doormaker the ability to speak, and then Doormaker is telling them, what they need to know from having been with the Clairvoyant and seeing what Taylor was focused on. And then, they start altering the city. They start putting as many Eden pieces as they can everywhere. And then Scion's fighting Lung, and he's fighting Mordnog. And then as soon as he starts seeing the stuff that Labyrinth is creating, he starts lashing out and destroying it. And then Lung is focused on the fight. The Dragon Man took advantage of the opening to burn him. But I feel like I I wish that line was written into every story. The Dragon Man took advantage of the opening to burn him. Vic says, Doormaker having teacher influence. Ugh. Well, don't worry. It's only for about 5 minutes. Teacher influence. It only lasts while you're alive. And then Taylor, knowing that Scion lashed out at the creation rather than the people he was fighting, thinks no filters. His emotions, raw. And, it's in the very broken, scattered way that she's thinking sometimes now. And then, Mordnog is doing her best to fight, but apparently Scion is doing permanent damage to the scavenger beast thing. And then this is the part where he sees the Changers. I'm going to read this part too. He came face to face with the Changers, wearing his companion's face, the face of the alabaster-skinned companion my friends had put together, other faces like them, companions that could be. One metal-skinned boy I'd salvaged from the ruins of a recent fight had been molded into a steel-skinned companion. Another was a female mirror of Scion himself, golden-skinned. And so, yeah, he starts lashing out more, destroying all the creations he can. Taylor's trying to move the Changers so they're not all getting murked. And then some of the Changers start changing away from those forms, probably to not get attacked, but others apparently don't have the speed to change out of it. But then she thinks to herself, if he's still this raw to his loss after 30 years, and in the most broken yet strength we have, you do not, we deal with the losses, or yeah, I'm sure that's supposed to say loss. Pain in our lives. She's really breaking down. She's having a hard time thinking. So yeah, she's making all these creations with Labyrinth, and they're getting destroyed as fast as she can make them. But then her friends are starting to do the same things with as many people as they can, and it's happening with a bunch of capes that she's not controlling. It says, this is Vista, I think. It says a space warper who could mold buildings was making faces, and they got illusions crafted of smoke. All sorts of things. They're doing the best they can to enact her plan. Either they've already intuited it because it was what Tattletale did last chapter, or alternately they had talked to Doormaker and knew that this was a key component to her plan. And so Scion's attention is less focused on the capes than ever. And she thinks to herself, we were approaching a critical point. I pulled the Changers back, and I moved to the location of some masters instead. Projection capes. Only a few, but it helped. I had the girl who made dreams into projections, and a clone hybrid of two of the killers, capable of making poisonous, noxious illusions out of the landscape. So, she's doing the most. She's getting all these powers involved again. What she's doing a lot is she'll start somebody working on a project, then move away from them or move them out of her range, and most of them just keep working on it because they understand that they're finally about to defeat Scion. And And then they're also sort of pushed to keep going by the canary song that's playing all over the battlefield. Taylor falls the fuck over, which characters do several times in this book. She just tries to take a step and then can't. And then she just kind of has other people pick her up, essentially. And she thinks, my body was failing on me. And yeah, she's not in good shape. She thinks about how she'd wanted to retreat and escape from everything, and at first she had wanted to read, but then she lost her ability to read, and then to understand language at all, and then the ability to express it, and now she can't move. This is actually really good. Sort of, these are all one-line paragraphs. Then it had taken reading from me. It had taken my ability to understand language, my ability to express it. Now it took my body. My mind was sure to follow. Like, it's got really good pacing on that, and it just hits really well, whether it's in audio or in text, I think. And then, I'm just going to keep reading a little bit. It's one of those chapters. The projections began to haunt him. They emerged from walls or crept around corners. Images of his deceased, slain partner. Images of others, which almost seemed to bother him more. If he was forming any kind of tolerance, it was slow. He wasn't getting a chance to breathe. Scion was striking down these constructions faster than I could raise them. Up until the moment the man in golden black armor shot his sword at him. It bought time to put more of these illusions and constructions in place. Scion righted himself, then hesitated. Fury was giving way to a kind of fear. And then she's relating this too. This is when, the bullying is, the most peak and pronounced. I knew this fear well. It was a fear that was all too easy to fall into when one's focus was too narrow. To be caught up in an environment, facing down a relentless torrent of negative experiences. Even the minor things added up. If you couldn't step back to look at things in perspective. He fought back. That was a fairly normal thing. A lot of people fought back when they faced something like this. A lot of people liked to think they could fight back up until it stopped. I limped forward, my squad in step around me, filling my power's radius. Those types of people tended to underestimate the tenacity of the well and truly fucked up individuals of this world. It was lowly to turn to this, but I'd never pretended to be honorable. Above any of that, when shit was on the line, I'd go as far as I had to. Yeah, so it's pretty awesome. She slams through another portal to Earth Bat, and then she kind of gets caught in a thought loop for a second, and then she sees her friends. She knows that it's her friends, but can't recognize them exactly. She's trying to mime. She's pointing at the portal and stuff, and she's worried. She's trying to get everybody to evacuate because she thinks Scion's about to snap. And she's worried that Scion had been leaving some of them alive to on the chance that the cycle could be restarted, but they're possibly getting close to a point where that's where he's just gonna kill them. Tattletale's on the phone and she's talking to people. And then Taylor's again having problems. The clairvoyant is not nearly as effective as it was before. I tried to turn the clairvoyant on the scene, but the view was so narrow now. I wasn't really able to see more than I could with my own eyes. I could choose where I saw from, but that didn't help me evaluate the crowd. And then this is when the sea emerges from the portal. She had been sort of racing between portals to get here from Earth Gimel, where the other Endbringers had been fighting. And she is singing her song to the entire battlefield, and it's sort of echoing against the Canary song. And then she is doing the Taylor move too. She's shaping the environment with her telekinesis to make the clouds of dust over Scion look like floating Eden, basically. And so no matter where he turns to look, what direction, it's all Edens all the way down. It says he was a member of a species that had won for however many cycles, utterly bewildered when we drowned it in its defeat. So the Seamerg showing up kind of makes him snap, like this extra layer of things. He was shaking. Any second, a slit of light appeared on the battlefield. It yawned open. Others began to follow. They fixed him, except it wasn't him. It was the fairy girl. She had him as a shadow puppet, a ghost. I could hear my friends swear. The others around her were tense. They turned to run, sprinting through the portal. Thousands of doorways. She turned and looked in my direction, but nothing appeared nearby. The fairy girl was opening doorways for everyone but us. Everyone but me. People were running, fleeing into the other worlds, and we were being left on our own. I couldn't close the portals I'd made with the reality warper. We ran, or the others ran, and I was mostly carried. So yeah, they then go through a whole bunch of portals to try and escape, and then the attack is... There was no sound, no scream, no explosion. It was a scouring light. No direction, no aim, nothing held back. The initial shockwave passed through doors, and it expanded in every direction with each door it passed through, sweeping past everything within 10 miles of each portal. The moment we were through the last portal, I'd connected every member of the group to a force field. The force field was then flung forward, carrying us with it. So yeah, they get out of range, they land... Taylor tries to gesture, realizing she can't move her fingers individually anymore. And then she moves to where Glastigüeñe is, and then she looks at Scion, and he's like, it says, I saw Scion, just barely recovering. And then Glastigüeñe is talking to others. She hears Aisha's voice asking her questions, but it's unclear exactly what she's saying. She's just a comforting presence right now. Glastigüeñe switches which people she has out aside from Doormaker, and then Taylor busts through another portal and appears right behind Glastigüeñe and takes control of her, and then uses the Doormaker shade, and she captures a bunch of people. She takes control of the Tinkers again, and then takes control of Genesis again, and then uses Genesis to create another, it says, a glimmering of the garden entity. So it loomed, rising into the air before Scion. He recoiled, striking at it. And then she turns her own bug swarm into a reaching hand just for like one extra little bit. And then she opens a doorway with Doormaker. She finds Oliver, who she had left behind on Earth Aleph. And then she thinks about how the Numberman had told her about the balance formula. And when Scion sees Oliver, then it gives him a moment of false hope, and then after that he is just like absolutely and truly devastated. In the moment that hope died, or wait, it's because somehow the boy registered as being like this entity's companion had been, registering as the same state as the power that made it so similar. In the moment that hope died, the girl with the injured hand used her power on the iron rods, infused them with the energy he was afraid of. Those rods became projectiles in another's hands. His hope was gone. He was bewildered, scared. He didn't try to dodge. He couldn't or wouldn't. They impaled him. One in the head, one in the chest. The Tinkers fired their weapon, an interdimensional ram, turned into a gun. They'd finished it while they weren't under my control. Defiant was the one ready at the switch. I discovered why he was concerned about the power. It kept things from being contained. I got a glimpse, a flash, of a look into the world beyond him, a world he'd shut off, to which his body was the only conduit. The beam tore into him and into the well. I moved the portals, and the beam turned to scour more of the landscape beyond Scion. The Fairy Queen began to slip from my grasp. She knew what was happening, and she was forcing my power to affect her spirits, a single spirit, breaking free. She moved her hand of her own volition, and then she was free, inside my radius but free. She turned to face me. I met her gaze as best as I was able. My vision wavered. Her head hung. She made no move to resist. She didn't close the portals. More projectiles, opening more doors. The beam ran out of power. The dead remains of the entity showered the ground at the center of the wasteland. I staggered. The emotion around me was too much. I pushed people away, and they bumped into one another. Some left my range. Only a handful remained. I didn't recognize a single one, even the one holding my hand. I couldn't shake the feeling I'd somehow betrayed myself, and I wasn't even sure who I was. It was over, and I was free to finally lose my mind. Oh, Alien's here and says, damn, literally last second. Well, luckily I will talk about the other sections. So there's more stream to go. But yes, you did come in at like the very end of the chapter. Yeah, so they completed like one of the coolest, craziest fights ever, and like I don't know, when I think of Scion compared to like Superman or like Goku or all those people who like, you know, have fans who are like, well, they're unbeatable by anything. I think Scion is far, far above Goku. I think Goku is like as strong as an Endbringer because he's a really overpowered protagonist, but Scion is just so well beyond like the standard fictional character. I really think that that it's like a really really well built up final antagonist because it feels super earned when they defeat him, and there are several moments when it feels like properly like, oh no, everything's fucked. I don't know. I think that it hits with all the weight that I would want. Yeah. Alien says he's closer to like a Perpetua or Anti-Monitor. He's in line with a classic cosmic comic event. So I don't know Perpetua or Anti-Monitor, but I guess the one thing that I could really pull out that's a similar thing is like, not that I think Galactus is at the same level as Scion, but Galactus kind of is the kind of like world destroying thing. that I can think of at the top of my power scale. I know that they just kept writing more and more powerful Marvel villains later, who like they would use the old villain to as like a jobber basically, so that we could see how badass the new villain is. Um, Alien says Galactus definitely, maybe a little Doctor Manhattan. Yeah, I think Doctor Manhattan. I think Doctor Manhattan is like an upper tier cape in terms of power level, but that like Scion himself, like like Doctor Manhattan literally in story has blind spots that are caused by something as like on a parahuman scale as inconsequential as a nuclear blast. Um. Oh yeah. You say character wise. Vic says, Mr. Fantastic, the strongest, bestest Marvel man. Yeah, exactly. Mr. Fantastic, as played by Jim Halpert. But, yeah. When I think of Mr. Fantastic now, he's been just, so... Because Mr. Fantastic, he's the Fantastic Four guy. Yeah. Reed Richards. I think of that really dumbass thing of like I think it's fan art, but it's the John Krasinski, Reed Richards crossing his arms twice around his body, like he's doing a huffy arms crossed kind of thing, but then it loops all the way around his body. Very silly, very stupid. But I love it. Anyway, I guess final chapter thoughts. Wow, you pulled it off. I can't believe that, like, without having as much overall power as she had in the previous chapter, I still think that this, like, tops the hype levels from 30.5. So it you did it, Wildbow. You one-upped yourself. Yeah, I don't know. I love this. Great chapter. That's the final word on that. For arc stuff, I actually noticed that 30.3 is the last chapter that has character tags in the whole story. And after that, I'm assuming that Wildbow didn't want the last few chapters to show up when you click the character tags. But also, he was so close to the end that he might have just been running out of time. I looked to see if he mentioned it in the comments of 30.4, only to see that he hadn't even left his like normal initial comment. On this particular chapter, he did leave his normal initial comment, and it was that that this indeed was the second to last chapter of Worm proper. So he confirmed that the next chapter is the final Taylor chapter. And you know, it's just it's gotta be an even weirder feeling getting to the end of the book as the writer than as us future readers. I pulled out the flashbacks, but I basically talked them as we went by. She was just starting to get like more and more memories fed to her by the shard, like. And the thing that kept breaking her out of that was Aisha talking to her. So, yeah. But for powers, knowledge, and world building, we've got the three blasphemies, or the three furies. They're here. They are those Tinker-created S-class threat like things. We're not sure of their exact capabilities, but they're very difficult to fight, and as long as there's one of them left, they can reconstitute the other two. So they have not been able to be destroyed as a group, even though individual ones have been killed off before. Konsu, he's healing away from the battle. I pulled up the... No, he was alive. He created a time field around himself, and was healing in a more distant location. Tohu, as we remember from the last chapter, had Glastigwenye, Eidolon, and Mirrodin as the three faces, and I said that this was totally ruthless. While Leviathan is already almost dead, she blows him up with one of the biggest blasts we've seen, like probably in the whole story. The smallest Endbringer, flying in the air, unloaded a laser, 3 of its shadow pets' attacks, and 2 more range powers on the Golden Man. The resulting blast sent the ruined fragments of the settlement and the remains of the surrounding terrain spraying into the air. The resulting crater compared with the one Leviathan had made in the real Brockton Bay. Alien says, "You think they could have pulled it off if the main player had a better understanding of the entity sooner?" Maybe. It's hard to say, because there is always the, like, we don't know if that would have set off Scion earlier. It's really unclear, to be honest. I do think it probably would have helped, but we can't really say for sure. But my answer is yes. I'm with you. Then after Tiny Tohu, we've got Big Bohu. The towering Endbringer was already so damaged that she could only pull herself together. Alien says, because Taylor's main contribution is getting everyone into the same room. Yeah, kind of. They have those meetings in Cauldron in arcs like 25 and 27, and that does not... it's not that it totally doesn't go anywhere, but everything falls apart after the oil rig attack. For Leviathan, I wrote, pour one out for Leviathan. Scion was killing the serpent Endbringer, Leviathan. Pummeling his chest, shattering it, cracks radiated from the wound, glowing gold. Scion's face was twisted in fury. His fury was that of a berserker. The blows were heavy enough that they drove Leviathan into the shattered earth below. Water was flowing in around them, Leviathan's element, but the attack continued, the glowing wounds creating mountains of steam around them. Leviathan managed to get one fin to make contact with Scion, and the resulting disintegration created nearly as much mist, redoubling the effect. And then skipping down later, the blast had separated the two, leaving Leviathan hunched over, one arm intact and braced against the ground, head hanging, his chest peeled open. Scion merely shifted his orientation in the air, not even shaking himself, not pausing to find his balance. He was roaring, screaming, and in his thrashing movements, his blind fury, I nearly missed it. In the moment he returned to an upright position, he flung out a sphere of golden light. The light curved in the air and punched into Leviathan's open chest cavity. The Endbringer fell. The color went out of Leviathan, his flesh breaking up, like clay overbaked in a kiln. The fins were the first thing to crumble, the rest of his body following suit. And Vic said, "Rip Leviathan, so many memories." Yeah. Leviathan, we salute you. Arc 8, pretty dope. I think it's a good, like, oh my god, the story has stakes kind of moment. Because it felt like things had really ramped up in Arc 7. Felt like there were already stakes. And then they're like, double stakes. This place is a steakhouse now. That's what they said. My entry for the Seamerg, Pretended to die, then came back to fight in the last moments to use her song on all the capes fighting and add her own sculpted versions of Eden to harass Scion. I think even though this is only a part of it, a part of their victory, it's still symbolic that the straw that broke the camel's back before one of the last attacks Scion makes came from the Seamerg. I think Taylor was right that it was important that humanity defeated Scion, with this alluding to how the Seamerg will continue to be a dangerous piece on the board even after Scion is gone. And she would be bad enough on her own, but she's also kind of a stand-in in this moment of the story for a lot of major issues caused by powers. And then Alien says, so Angel Wing is the last Endbringer left standing? That's actually a common misconception. The Seamerg is the only one to rejoin the fight against Scion, but the only Endbringers that are destroyed in the story are Behemoth and Leviathan. All of the other Endbringers remain. So Khonsu, Tohu, and Bohu are all alive. They've been like injured to a huge degree, but because of their rate of healing, reconstitution, whatever, then they are able to survive the fight. Oh yeah, I could see the Endbringer arrive. I'd opened a portal to Gimel, in the process of making mouse holes between worlds, and she was the only one that remained. She sang, a shrill song that echoed in every mind I controlled, her song joining the one that echoed from the phones on belts and in pockets. What do we got? So, the next section is Oliver and the Changers. So when you see Oliver's face, all hope is lost. Or perhaps it's better to say that you briefly have hope and then you're sent into a pit of despair. But either way, you don't want to see Oliver's face. This was the true last push that broke Scion's spirit after the other Changers became versions of Eden and Scion. The various powers that made illusions of Eden, like Genesis, powers making physical manifestations like Golem and Vistas, Labyrinth, pulling in chunks of worlds to look like Eden, which I had thought to myself, Labyrinth could have been tapping into the same way that Amy's power is tapping into the shaping of the weird body, and that in the weird mishmash way of things, apparently the Rachel's dogs look a lot like Eden's body. So with those two as examples, I think Labyrinth could be pulling at something deep that's she's just naturally tapping into worlds that have Eden-like formations. And then the Seamerg's nonsense also. Oliver's power is just the balance formula, the essence of Eden's human facade. And then, I pulled this. He came face to face with the Changers, wearing his companion's face, the face of the alabaster-skinned companion my friends had put together, other faces like them, companions that could be, one metal-skinned boy I'd salvaged from the ruins of a recent fight that had been molded into a steel-skinned companion. Another was a female mirror of Scion himself, golden-skinned. Yeah, I really like that part. It's pretty cool. For the reality warpers, I pulled out this bit of Golem and such. Hands of stone emerged from around the city. More of reality warped around us. When she changed everything in her range into a simulation of the garden, I turned it into a portal. Changed she tries to say channel and then breaks off to say station, to something where it was all solid. Rock, ice, dirt. Then I moved her somewhere else and started over. All around Scion, piece by piece, the world was changing. So much, so fast. It wasn't all on my end. My friends. They'd connected the dots. They saw what I was doing, and they were getting others on board. Illusions crafted of smoke. A space warper who could mold buildings was making faces. The dream projector fell unconscious and was captured by her one-time friend, a glimmering of the garden entity. It loomed, rising into the air above Scion. My swarm, feeble as it was, formed a reaching hand. He struck at that in turn. The impact wasn't as strong. A distraction, maintaining pressure, nothing more. Alien says, she really does my boy Weld like that. She does indeed. Vic says, Vista can make faces? I think she can. I think she hasn't had the motivation to do so in the past, but I'm pretty certain that that's her. It could be Golem poking his face, but it says... warping... buildings... Yes, a space warper who could mold buildings was making faces. Vic says, Vista really needs to optimize her power. Yeah, I mean... she does some things in Ward that really outclass anything we see her do in Worm, so. Riding around on force fields, it probably looks less cool than it sounds, given that half the time Taylor is scooping people with 2 force fields instead of just riding 1. Extra portals. Taylor's final group punches a bunch of portals, like permanent portals between parallel worlds. I did already read this, but I'm just gonna read it back anyway. I didn't have the Portal Man, but I did have this as a means of traveling sideways, like Scion could travel in this direction that wasn't up, down, left, right, forward, or back. It didn't let me cross all the way into other continents. Movement was analogous. Alien says, I'm forgetting, does she recognize Armsmaster when she builds the BFG V.1? Yes, I think so. I'm pretty sure that she thinks to herself that Defiant... yeah, in the previous chapter, I gave Defiant the honor of pulling the switch, and then in this chapter, Defiant was the one ready at the switch. So, it was a switch both times, and it was Defiant both times. Oh, and then Canary's song. Again, I think this is, like, maybe my favorite moment in the fight. I really like the whole thing. Hard to, like, drill down and find exactly one moment, but it's when Taylor does her broken version of Think About Courage, about moving forward. Alien says, interesting that he's one of the only capes she remembers. Yeah. They are really similar people. I know that their powers are quite different, but they have a lot of overlap in terms of their personality. So maybe, I don't know, maybe that's why. She also remembers Teacher's name for longer than you'd expect. She calls him by the correct name even when she can't remember, like, Tattletale or you know, Rachel. Oh yeah, but I already read it when it was happening, but the Scion's lash out part, I thought that attack he did was pretty crazy. There was no sound, no scream, no explosion. Just the all directions attack. Well, of course. Who wouldn't remember Teacher, says Alien. He's number 1. Best guy. Yeah, then there was the Sting and Ballistic. In the moment that Hope died, the girl with the injured hand used her power on the iron rods, infused them with the energy he was afraid of. Those rods became projectiles in another's hands. His hope was gone. He was bewildered, scared. He didn't try to dodge. He couldn't or wouldn't. They impaled him. One in the head, one in the chest. Damn. We've got the dimensional battering ram. The Tinkers fired their weapon. An interdimensional ram turned into a gun. They'd finished it while they weren't under my control. Defiant was the one ready at the switch. In the end, and this is my added, in the end, the arms man himself gets to throw the switch on the Tinker Group project. I love that. I discovered why he was concerned about the power. It kept things from being contained. I got a glimpse, a flash of a look into the world beyond him, a world he'd shut off, to which his body was the only conduit. The beam tore into him and into the well. And then, we got Scion defeated, ending the chapter. The dead remains of the entity showered the ground at the center of the wasteland. Yay! We did it! Yay! We freaking did it! So, I'm impressed. We're all impressed. We love Taylor. No complaints. She didn't do anything wrong. And I'm glad that we all know that she didn't do anything wrong. For characters, we got Scion. I pulled out the strength we have, you do not. We deal with the loss, pain in our lives. He was reacting, spending as much time destroying the landscape as he was on us. So yeah, I mean, they've hammered it over the head constantly over the last couple arcs, but truly, in the end, they had to defeat Scion using the human emotions that he had given form when he created the decoy. Like, it's not a decoy, like the Scion body. That facade that was meant to trick the humans into thinking he was on their side and was like a worshipable figure was in the end what made him too close to being a human, and they killed him through his humanity with their humanity. And then they killed his powers body with some good powers once they already defeated his emotions. Alien says they really just bully the fuck out of him at the end. Yeah, no, I mean, that's true. But let's not pretend like he wasn't doing specific bully shit also, where he's like, maybe I'll set a bunch of fires on these buildings with people in them, and then when anybody comes up to try and stop me, I'll be like, hey, you're dead, and I'll blast them. And then he's like, does that thing where he kills Queen of Cups and then takes King of Cups and just slowly presses him into the ground. So, Scion's doing a bunch of bully shit too. They just bully him better. They're better at being bullies. Teacher, we don't really get any affect off of him. All we know is that he gave the ability of speech to Doormaker, and that thankfully Doormaker was killed off minutes later so that Teacher could not use Doormaker. And then for a lot of these characters, if they got like an alternate name, then I just put that too. So Bonesaw, the Child Surgeon. It would be like their subtitle when they're introduced in like a fancy fighting game. Alien says, she learned it from the best. Emma is truly MVP. Well, there's some lines from early in the book that are like, they kind of feel like they're telling the whole story right off the bat. Let me see. I guess it's one chapter earlier. I have to get... Yeah. So in chapter 1.4, before long, Lung would set fire to the city block, become immune to bites and stings in general, or destroy my entire swarm. I had to get creative. I had to get meaner. And then Alien says, when she says, "Take that, you worm." That's my favorite part of the book. Well, that's actually in chapter 1.1. In 1.1, she yells, "Take that, you worm," in class at the beginning. And then Emma yells, "Take that, you worm," at Taylor in the bathroom. And then at the end of the book, first Taylor in this chapter, 30.6, yells at Scion, "Take that, you worm." And then in the last portion of the epilogue, the final line is, of course, "Take that, you worm." Oh, boy. So, yeah, Bonesaw, doesn't do that much in this chapter, but I like that she gets described as the child surgeon. And then Mordnog, the warlord with the death-eating shadow. I wrote down Satyr. While he's not specifically called out, he would almost certainly be in the pile of changers. Lung, hulking dragon man. I like that in the last part, you know how like Lung had sort of been deciding not to fight Scion and saying he was unbeatable several times? Well, after being controlled by Taylor, etc., he is like, no, this guy is beatable, and I will be part of the thick of it at the end. And he really does hold the front line for the last part of the fight. And then, who do we got? We got Nighty Night, which is apparently the name of the mixed cape that was created by Bonesaw of Nyx and Night Hag. Glastigwenye, the Fairy Queen. She tries to leave Taylor and her group behind when Scion Ultra blows up that area, which I put the smiling sweat drop emoji. Like, that's a little embarrassing. And then right near the end, she moved her hand of her own volition. And then she was free, inside my radius, but free. She turned to face me. I met her gaze as best I was able. My vision wavered. Her head hung. She made no move to resist. She didn't close the portals. So in the end, Glastigwenye, who had kind of always been vacillating between wanting Scion to be able to continue the cycle and then fighting alongside the other humans, gives up and does not kill Taylor. Even though she left Taylor behind to try to kill her minutes before. Anjanu is there. She's still affecting Chevalier's power, which is probably why he's able to keep hitting Scion hard enough to knock him about. Chevalier, he at one point, when they're first all freed, gives some sort of rousing speech to keep everyone on side. Cape, named after siege weapon, who works for Chevalier? This is a question mark for me. I know I said it while I was reading through the chapter, but once again, I was not able to figure out who this cape was, like at all. So I have no idea who's being referred to right there. We've got Narwhal, known as the Force Field Woman. Narwhal's pretty critical to this, moving Taylor's forces around and like zipping around the battlefield, like guarding the portal entrances, all sorts of things. So, and then we got Doormaker, the Portal Man. Pour one out for Doormaker. It was the fairy girl. She had him as a shadow puppet, a ghost. So yeah, he's given the ability to speak for the last moments of his life and then immediately killed. It's pretty fucking crazy. We've got Clairvoyant. There's an accidental she describing the Clairvoyant in this chapter. So I think for like a while I remembered it wrong because this chapter like imprinted so hard on my mind. But everywhere else, the Clairvoyant is referred to as he. So I think this was a simple typo. And the place that is when they're confronting Dinah. And the Clairvoyant pulls the note out of Taylor's belt. And then it says, she pulled the note out. Which was like, Doesn't seem to be correct. Anyway, Fault Line. It's the end of the world, but Fault Line's here fighting with her mercenary crew, seemingly hired by Dinah. Perhaps just a coincidence. Maybe they run with Dinah all the time now in this part of the timeline. Not sure. But they would be decent bodyguards. Trying to think if I have stuff to say about Fault Line. I'm sure she didn't like the fact that Labyrinth and Scrub got scooped. But Fault Line had the good sense to listen to what Dinah was saying and follow her instructions. And for that, we know that Fault Line is a real one. And we salute her as we saluted Leviathan. Neuter, he's there. He's ready to spit at Taylor probably, but he doesn't. Gregor, also there, trying to defend Dinah. Shamrock gets in a good shot after they use after they use Dinah's power to figure out the sort of optimal way to handle the situation. They shoot Narwhal, which I'm sure Narwhal will not be super jazzed about when she has control over herself. Like, ow, you shot me. But, in these parahuman situations, I think most people understand you gotta do what you gotta do. We got Labyrinth, the reality warper. Scrub, who I believe is, what is it? He gets referred to as, like, her friend or something. Reality. Yeah, another force field caught the boy with glowing hair. Okay, so he's at least the boy with glowing hair. He's not totally, like, Ballistic is the ex-friend of Jess, basically. Then they got two, the power booster from the Yang Band. The only one of them that gets pulled into this final thing. It really helps Taylor reassert her control and get like super Labyrinth and Canary power, which is what she focuses it on. Sifara, the connection man, she uses to do her various schemes while she's flying about on force fields. We got Luke, Ballistic. Once again, Luke is part of a key moment. He was used to test fire sting in the previous chapter, and now he's used for the real deal. He is the one to finally fire the sting-infused rods into Scion. And, I don't know, I feel like he really did want to make a big name for himself, and in a way, this is a pretty huge deed under his name. Then we got Marissa. I think she's only seen in the previous chapter, but I listed her here anyway because she's here in our hearts. We got Jess, the dream projector. The dream projector fell unconscious and was captured by her one-time friend, a glimmering of the garden entity. Yeah. We got Oliver, of course. He ends up being the key to all of this because he's hot. Scion sees him and realizes Oliver's hot. No, I'm kidding, obviously. But it must be quite alarming to be like, oh no, I have no powers, and I'm dragged into the craziest fight of all time. We got Hannah. She doesn't trust Taylor in this moment. Shotguns the phone, sending through the Canary song, but she stays on task and fights Scion. Doesn't snipe Taylor. We got Colin. He gets to be the head of the group project. It's, he, at the beginning of the book, was not good at dealing with people. He's still not. But like at the beginning of the book, they put him in charge anyway. It's great to see all these guys that we've known for so long. Missy, she's space warping buildings into faces. She's here at the last fight. pour one out for the already killed Chris and Dennis, who are not here to witness this final fight. We got Weld. Alien, at least, is pulling for Weld and sad that Taylor turned him into a mock-up of Eden. Sveta, she's able to keep from killing anyone, seemingly, by running away into a building. Paige, her good nature allows her to be tricked. She tries to save Foyle with her power armor, but it doesn't work. And then she is critical and instrumental. And there's a point at which her song kind of changes, and Taylor thinks that maybe it's because her own emotions change. Maybe it's because Canary's emotions change. It's kind of I don't know. I got the idea that, from my perspective, it felt like Paige wanted to do what she was being... She wanted to do what she was being forced to do anyway. We got Theo, classic, and then I found the boy who made hands and faces out of surrounding materials, a teammate, a friend. He worked with me on something important. You know, it's really sad coming to her like way of seeing all these people. Amy, I think, is another here but doesn't get any lines kind of shout out. She's kind of just nearby. I guess I shouldn't list Amy because I don't know if she's specifically here, but you know what? I don't care. Alien says, so far she doesn't even get Golem. Well, she doesn't get the name right, but she knows who he is. We got Lily. She is, again, key to the final attack. Her power of Sting is like the ultimate offensive power, and it breaks through the barrier into Scion's sort of hidden world that his body and his well of power are stored away into. I'm sure this is not great for her, but when she and Perian are hesitant to go back into the fight, then Rachel's able to convince them by sort of barking at them. Saba, she makes a Leviathan to ride on for the final part of the battle when Leviathan is gone, and I had the smiling one tear emoji of like, you know, a gone but not forgotten. Glad to see it. You know, our best friend Leviathan, the guy who killed Shielder and Manpower. Leviathan. Then we've got Dinah, the precog. She stared down at the 2.5 words, then crumpled it. Her head hung. And of course, as I already said earlier, apparently Taylor has lost her ability to count, because note 1 says cut ties, note 2 says I'm sorry, so there's no way to slice things to make either one or both notes together a 2.5 word combination. Seeing Dinah here, having Taylor feel like she can't control Dinah, like the fact that Dinah willingly gave herself up to Taylor as well, like, again, very sad, very sweet. Yeah, everything's bittersweet, and it reminds us back to when last chapter it called back to you're there, but you're different, which is a callback to when she's seeing the end of the world much earlier in the book, and now we know what that means, of course. And the fact that Dinah like stuck with her and told the Fault Line's crew not to attack, you know, it's moving, I think. And then for Aisha is with her the entire chapter. She's following her around through the entire fight, comforting her, like redirecting her thought process, getting her back on track. She can't understand anything Aisha is saying, but it's just like her presence there and hearing her voice does the trick. So, yeah, This is really, you love to see it. Rachel, dog girl. I just put like the heavy crying emoji. Um, uh, she's able to get through to Taylor in a way that Lisa isn't, and it's really sweet. A lot of people do take this to mean that Taylor's relationship to Rachel was closer than that with Lisa, but I just think it's on like a more fundamental like body language level that's like different from the way she interacted with Lisa, and that by losing the language she lost her connection to Lisa for the most part. Um, but Rachel and Lisa still both believe in Taylor and like work with her and trust her during this chapter. As we remember, Rachel had also willingly given herself to Taylor uh, several chapters ago, earlier in this arc. Um, but yeah, Rachel, like, I don't know. It's this connection that I think it is more meaningful because they went like enemies to friends. I know a lot of people ship Taylor and Rachel, and I kind of get it, like an enemies to lovers kind of thing. But but yeah, I don't know. We'll talk more about Rachel. She'll be in some of the remaining chapters, and then Lisa, the girl with the phone, or the blonde girl, as it were. She saved me, in a way. I couldn't remember how, but I remembered that much. This, to me, is like the saddest cutoff. I love the Taylor Lisa connection. And although I'm fine with the canonical Lisa is Ace from Ward, in this she sort of hints at that, but kind of leaves the door open to being in a relationship. I think the Taylor Lisa ship is like, that's definitely my OTP. Uh, they're I love them. Lisa, you did all the perfect plays in this chapter. You got everybody into the right places. You helped Taylor with the phone thing for Canary. You nailed it. We love you, Lisa. We're sorry that you felt hurt when Taylor could understand Rachel better than you. Um, in your heart, you will always know that Taylor loved you. And then moving on to Taylor as the final person. I just pulled out a couple quotes here. My body was failing on me. And then I staggered. The emotion around me was too much. I pushed people away, and they bumped into one another. Some left my range. Only a handful remained. I didn't recognize a single one. Even the one holding my hand. I couldn't shake the feeling I'd somehow betrayed myself, and I wasn't even sure who I was. It was over, and I was free to finally lose my mind. Alien says, I assume about Rachel, it's because she got that dog in her. Anyway, yeah, Taylor, like, obviously she's been like losing ground mentally for the whole arc, but this is like a step further. And another quote that I was able to find. I didn't pull it out before, but I thought about it just now. Standing was hard. I needed a chance to rest, to think. Except thinking was harder still. I was a husk, and things were rotting from the inside out. I'd hoped to recuperate some when I had less people in my control, but it seemed like but it didn't seem like it worked out that way. Damage done was damage done. One section of my brain was swelling or creeping out to take over other sections, like it had overwritten Dog Girl's social perceptions. Very sad. So yeah, Taylor slowly losing it, pushing things to the brink. She makes sure not to never control Lisa, and she you know, tries not to control Rachel or Dinah either. But yeah, by the end of the chapter, she really like almost fully loses herself. I don't want to say she fully has lost herself, because there's still some Taylor in there, even in the remaining chapters. But yeah, I don't know. That's the end of that character section, and I think that this chapter, I maybe. It's hard to say it has the most characters, because there are some chapters with like a million characters, but this felt like a lot. This felt like tons and tons of characters. They're bringing everybody they can who's even slightly relevant back. Wow, what a chapter. It feels a little odd to end on saying I don't have an audience participation question this time. But I kind of don't. I'm probably going to do the outro, but if you have any final thoughts from Alien or Vic about this chapter, about like something interesting enough to be the audience participation, go for it. I'm gonna play the speed draw again. Starting that beautiful outro music, and then we got this. Yes, so the music you're hearing now is Speck by ScarlettXOX. You can find her at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. That link is in the channel description. All the rest of the links are in that link is in the stream description. All the rest of the links are in the channel description and stream description. We've got the Discord server link, as well as the link to support Wildbow on Patreon, which is patreon.com/Wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. There's also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org, and then the second one that was made at abaddonproductions.org. And yeah, you know what, the speed draw is so fast I can play it another time. And I'm gonna. I love how it reflects the image of the first chapter. I just, yeah, it's amazing. I'm excited for Ward, but I feel very wistful about the end of Worm. We've been doing this for so long, and I do love Worm. So. Alright, I'll see you all in the next stream, 30.7, the final Taylor